giving one of these presentations. We kind of have a little dog and pony show. We're not quite sure who's who, but we want to share our story with how we came to be standing here in front of you and how important it's been to our practice. So I started working with Henry Schein about 5 years ago with the sleep apnea task force. And we covered some important ground and spread the word to orthodontists that sleep apnea is something that we all need to at least screen for in our offices. And about 3 years ago, at one of those meetings, one of the folks handed me a few packets of brackets and said, we make brackets and wires too, besides just the sleep apnea stuff. Would you mind trying them out? And I was very comfortable with the procedures and stuff that I had in my office. We had a very busy and vibrant practice. And so calls back about 6 months later and said, Dave, what do you think of the brackets? Well, I think they're still in the drawer, because I took them back to the office and put them in the drawer, and they just stayed there. So do me a favor, put them on and see what you think. So I had 20 cases, and we put them on 20 sequential patients. And 2 years ago, just before this meeting, I was asking my team how many sets of brackets we needed to order. And they gave me the number, and they said, but we want those new brackets. And I went, well, why is that? They said, because our job is so much easier, and you didn't notice the patients are finishing in a year or less? And I went, well, no, because I'm busy doing all the stuff I do, and I haven't gotten those reports. And I went back and looked, and they were absolutely right. So I'm going to show you my journey in that respect. And Jep came on board about a year or so ago.
Yep, about a year or so. I think I've been 100% SLX in our office for about 14, 15 months now. I'm a 10-year passive self-ligation user. Ormco Q bracket, cut my teeth on it, loved it. And Dave calls me up one day and basically says, you got to try these brackets out. Take a look at them. We're having a lot of success, a lot of decreased treatment time. You really need to take a serious look at it. So with that, had some contact with Henry Schein Ortho and started my cases. And this is basically the story of our journey.
So my biggest pain point was that I would tell patients that they were going to be finished in a certain amount of time, and it was very difficult for me as a clinician to be able to accomplish that routinely. So I tried both, the standard Ormco Q and Insignia, thinking that would help. Neither one of them managed to take out the extra appointments that I had finishing wires. And the worst thing was, at least in my office, it would be that one offset bend that you just had to do to get finished. Go ahead and do the offset bend. Just as soon as the assistant closes the door, the bracket pops off, and you have to back up, and before you know it, you're in another 6 months treatment. And so I found myself doing far too many finishing bends.
Way too many finishing bends. I was seeing the same thing in my office. And not only just finishing bends by quantity, but finishing bends over multiple finishing appointments, therefore taking more and more time. And you're going to see some data that the two of us have compiled individually, and then also collated with even a third office. And we're going to show you all that data throughout this presentation. Additional cost of drop-in hooks are another concern, and then also the pain point of broken drop-in hooks, repair appointments, SOS appointments, things of that nature.
Along with that, if patients want to change colors with the Q bracket, you pretty much have to take the wire out, take the colors off, they go brush your teeth, put colors back on, put the wire back in. So what should be a 30-second appointment turns into about a 10 or 15-minute appointment every single time. And with the SLX, you'll see that the tie wings are much more useful. They're a little more robust. And so it's very simple. If kids come in and they have, say, the prom or a baseball game or whatever they're going to, they can change out those colors, and it's not even a doctor appointment. It's simply an assistant appointment. I asked, oh, what was Johnny here for? Oh, he wanted new colors, and away they go.
And then the final thing on this chart, or this list, is the cost of the bracket. The SLX bracket was a much more appealing cost structure for my practice. And lo and behold, they stay on the teeth better. It's a lot better. And we'll show you some of that data as the presentation goes along.
So ironically, we were already prepared to give this little presentation, and OrthoTown came out with this recent publication where they looked at when and why do orthodontists decide to change what bracket system they use. So interestingly enough, most of us, over half, have used the same bracket system for over 5 years. We are creatures of habit. It doesn't matter if you're in grade school or you're my age, you park in the same place when you pull into the office, right? Whenever you go to a restaurant, all of us have like my table, that you ate at last time. In a classroom, it doesn't matter the first day or the last day of school. It's not that the seats are assigned. You go in and sit in that seat, right? Because that's your seat after the first time you sit there. So we're creatures of habit. And so some people use more than one manufacturer, but the key number here is if you look that 67% of us have not even considered changing brackets. And part of the reason for that is that we're creatures of habit, and also we're afraid of what that change may bring to the practice. So we only change things in life when there's pain involved. You touch the stove, you don't do that anymore. And so if you're paying too much for your appliances, that's painful to your wallet, and even more painful to your spouse because they don't get to spend the money. If you're having a problem with quality control, then that's painful because you're unable to deliver the care to your patient that you'd like to be able to deliver. And 30% just have a sense that something's not right and that they should be able to do a better job, and so they end up wanting to change the philosophy. Occasionally, you have such a star territory manager that comes in to sell you products that's the reason that you're loyal to the company. And we all know those individuals, and we wish our entire office was full of those kind of people, but they're rare, but they are there.
So in my practice, I've got a bias, and actually in our profession, I've got a bias. And that bias is, at any given time, there are 10 to 20 million adults annually that desire treatment. They have means for treatment, and they desire treatment. And that's isolating for all the other factors. Now, we're currently only treating about 800,000 of those a year. The number one pain point for most adults is not finance. The number one pain point is time and treatment. How long, how many appointments? And the SLX bracket addresses exactly this. And we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about that, showing you some data. How do we get there? It's simple. We try to find a treatment methodology where we either keep them in braces or we keep them in total treatment for 12 months or less. Because the reality is we don't want to see our family over 2 Christmases with braces on or in treatment.
So we honestly feel, and it's easy to give presentations when you're talking about the stuff you love to do. And so I really think that the time has come to look at SLX as not only a variation of a bracket design, but also the total philosophy that goes behind it. And we're going to talk about different arch wire sequences and timing and whatnot that are able to do now because of the design of the bracket. So you don't have to look at this as a whole because we're going to go through each step, but this is a comparison between the Ormco Q bracket and the SLX bracket. If we look at this, this is a size-corrected photo of the SLX bracket and the Q bracket. Now, one of the things you'll notice is the tolerances are much tighter. That's a size-corrected blue block that represents a 1925 arch wire. And so you can see how it fits in the bracket that although it's passive, you have a lot more control because of where it sits. And it's not just this drawing that shows that.
Oh, sorry about that, a little lag.
So the Angle Orthodontist published this article recently that is really interesting because what they did is they took all the self-ligating brackets, put a 1925 wire in, injected it with plastic, and then sectioned the wire and took close-up photographs. And so this is a Q bracket, and you can see all the play all around the wire with it in there. So if you had have bent this twist band in to control the root position on a tooth, where is that wire sitting within the bracket? Because when the patient comes back, even if the torque on the teeth had changed, the tooth could be sitting forward or back from the tooth next to it. And it can also be rotated because you have the same amount of play. So what we found ourselves doing is making bends in all 3 planes of space that were very complex, only to find out when the patient comes back that you have to take out and adjust the same tooth again. And the pain point for me was having that conversation with mom when it would be like, well, next time they're going to get their braces off. And they come in and go, oh, I got to make one more adjustment. Next time you're going to get your braces off. Oh, one more adjustment. Until the moms are standing there with that look, with their arms folded, going, and how many one more appointments are there going to be before they get them off? And people have experienced that all over the world. And the problem is with the inherent design of the bracket. We're going to talk about the improvements that we have.
Hence the mini detail bends. So when you get the SLX bracket, the first time you put it on, one of the initial things you're going to notice is that the brackets, the width of each individual bracket is custom for each tooth. That reduces the inter-bracket distance, and that also engages our derotations and also torque expression earlier in the prescription, earlier in the treatment sequence. The Ormco Q bracket was consistently the same bracket all the way through, and those inter-bracket distances can get huge depending on the width of the tooth. Another thing you'll notice about the SLX bracket is there are numerous visual cues when you're placing the bracket. Have no problem placing the brackets with the doors closed. As a matter of fact, that's what we recommend doing, is placing the brackets with the doors closed. These visual cues they help you to place a bracket in the absolute perfect spot on the tooth. One of the initial things you'll notice, and less reposition appointments, that's what that contributes to.
Matter of fact, Jep called me after about his third month of using them. He goes, Dave, I thought you were kidding me, but these brackets just seem to know where to go on the tooth.
Yeah, that was right in the middle of the day. I had just finished bonding a case, and I was like, these are amazing. They almost seem like they're pre-programmed, it seems. I know that sounds laughable, but that's exactly what I was feeling like. They're
also lower profile, and so you have less occlusal forces on them, and so the likely